No matter, you couldn't tell what I might support, but I'm saying that we are now doing something after the fact, and I don't think that we'd be in
Well, you
order.
did it after the fact, after you took time to, number one, send out a flyer that limited to the 29th. We're here tonight because we're doing something after the fact. When the flyer came out, you said that no proposal, underline, no, please, no proposal. No proposal. I'm not interested in what she's saying. I addressed it to the chair. You can just wave your hand as much as you like. No proposal would be accepted after the 29th. The chair entertained a motion to waive that rule, and now I'm suggesting that the chair entertain a motion to consider one proposal from one group.
Ben, I'm not going to entertain that motion. I'm sorry, Ms. Rutherford.
You don't have that.
Ben, you're out of order at this point. You're out of order at this point, Ms. Rutherford.
I'm not out of order. I'm not out of order.
Madam Chair,
And
I
you don't
just
have.
recall the guidelines do not stipulate any number of proposals. If we can get through with 2 or 3 proposals from everybody who signed up, let's do all. There is nothing in the guidelines about limitation of proposals.
There was nothing, there was something that said that we weren't supposed to have proposals in today. But we waived that. We voted on it. You voted in the meeting. You were there.
It didn't say we couldn't have proposals today, that's what we need.
It did. The flyer that came out, Madam Chairman, or Mr. Chairman, I thought that John was chairman the meeting. Well, Madam Chairman, did you or did you not, or your committee, send out a flyer that said that all proposals would have to be in on the 29th, or Friday the 29th? Please let me finish. And that no proposal, and it was underlined, no proposals would be accepted after the 29th date. And this body, after much discussion, and I'm surprised that the lady that's seated there with the glasses on at the table, she was present and took part in that discussion. After much discussion, there was a vote taken, and we are having the meeting tonight based on that vote.
Ben, the rules for today,
I'm asking you a question.
I don't have a copy of the proposal. I don't have a copy of the fly sheet with me. The
May I
fly
ask you
sheet
this?
was
Were you
overruled.
responsible for sending out the flyer?
The fly sheet was overruled at the last meeting, as it was desired by the body. At this meeting, we said we were going. The rules of the day was to read the proposal straight down.
Proposals must be submitted at this meeting on the 29th of September. No proposals will be accepted after this date. Now, the same body ruled to change it.
Here's the flyer.
All right, well then you can read the language right down here.
I think so. It says has an S on
It's
it.
saying proposals because for the simple reason more than one group is submitting a proposal.
But
so
then that
I'm
can
not
be
going to be
interpreted-
hung up on. I'm not going to interpret that.
But
Proposals
then
is
that can be
plural.
interpreted both ways, and I'm ruling you out of order, and you just have to challenge the chair if you'd like.
Well, I'm challenging the chair.
Well, what's the pleasure of the body?
We don't have 3 or 4 proposals.
I'm challenging the chair and
I am not, the challenge would be against my entertaining a motion and ruling you out of order. Now, if there's a challenge to that, I will accept the challenge, and I will take the pleasure of the body.
I am challenging the chair for not entertaining my motion.
What's the pleasure of the body?
You put the question to the body.
I'm putting the question to the body. I said, what's the pleasure of the body? Mr. Grimes.
I make a motion that we have one proposal from each agency or
I'm
whatever.
ruling you out of order, Lucky. That is not the motion I'm going to entertain.
You come to order, Teresa.
The challenge is my ruling Mr. Davis out of order.
Challenge you did it. You take it out of order.
I asked about the challenge. Now, nobody has gotten up and stated a challenge. I'm ruling that motion out of order. I feel that it's improper. The motion should have been stated before we took any proposals. We are moving after the fact. Now, nobody's challenging that. We'll move on to the next person, which is John Kennard.
Madam Chairman, I beg to differ with you.
Go ahead, John.
I beg to differ with you. There has been a challenge on the floor, and the pleasure of the challenge hasn't been I'd like for you to state it and let this body have a chance to either make a motion or rise in support of it or what have you, please.
Davis, can I make a suggestion to you, sir?
The motion,
I don't want to hear no suggestion. I want to
that motion out of order.
let her abide by Robert Rules.
I'm
You
gonna
want me
make
to
my suggestion anyhow. That all of the proposals be read, as we said in the very beginning, and if there's any challenge to anything, it be after the proposals are read. Thank you.
When I ask you the
Vote
chair,
is read, John.
you are not the chair. When I asked you if you were chair, you gave it to her. That's your suggestion.
I just gave a suggestion.
But
I
I'm
have the
still
floor.
waiting on the challenge.
I have the floor. I'm sorry.
I'm waiting on the challenge.
Hey, Ben, I tell you what, do you want to be the chair?
I don't want to be the chair, but I
Well,
want
what
the
do you
chair to
want
be
to do?
fair.
Well,
and
what do you want to do? Let's say what you want to do.
I want the chair to be fair and recognizing the fact that, number one, I have challenged my right to place a motion on this floor before this body.
Excuse me,
Madam Chair,
excuse me.
Madam Chairman.
You are wrong.
Ben, the reason that I'm ruling you out of order, you did not challenge the rules of the day. And those rules say begin with 4, and here are the first 3 proposals that were presented on Friday last. That each person who presents a proposal, and after all proposals are presented,
For a proposal.
can be asked with no interruptions. And it says, listen to the need as it relates to Anacostia, and then question them afterwards, and I'm gonna follow
You
that.
read
Well,
it,
this
you read it, Teresa, and you said it yourself, and then you went against what you're reading now
No,
because you
I-
asked the body what was their pleasure.
I don't think so. The next person to speak is John Kennard.
Yeah, well, Madam Chairman, you did say, you said that we will listen to, a proposal.
After
That was from each one of the organizations that are here. Just you said a proposal. A one.
Now, why don't you, if you want to be a fair chairman, ask the body the pleasure.
My interpretation of what Mr.
That's your
Jordan,
interpretation.
my interpretation of what Mr. Absalom Jordan presented was one proposal. I thought it was,
Now, he said it was a second proposal.
what'd you present?
He said two.
Huh?
Oh, you're ashamed of yourself.
Mr. Hutchison. No, I'm not. Mr. Hutchison.
He said two proposals.
Mr. Hutchison has the floor, Mr. Davis.
I think you stated that you would listen to a proposal with a 5-minute timer.
What did you say, Ed?
I think we did too.
First off, I address myself. Most of the people who were here raising issues weren't at the meeting Friday night. So, like it really raised some things we the black folks that were like on the last turn coming in and fighting among themselves. I mean, I really see that as a bad thing. It's like this community's supposed to be getting together to do something. We ain't supposed to be fighting over a few bucks or whether one person puts in one proposal 15, all right? Now, if, like the question,
You just said, you even have respect for him to sit and listen to him.
Cicero, you are out of order. You are out of order. He has the floor, Cicero. Cicero, you are out of order. You can speak, but at least then have the floor and then you speak after he gets finished.
I'm addressing my thing, you, Madam Chairman. All right, I ain't gonna get hung up in that emotional stuff. The question is that we should be placing proposals here that the community will have an opportunity to vote on and let them establish priorities. If we got 40,000 proposals and the community wants to deal with them, solid. If the community thinks that they're important and worthy of consideration, solid. And I don't think that we should do this thing in a haphazard way in the last minute. I don't have no problem with pulling out, and I can see some other problems happening up. And so my thing is, I think that what we should be dealing with here is
You're out of order, Mr. Bell.
hey, I don't have no problem, bro. You don't want to I ain't got no problem.
You know,
The next,
But that ain't the question.
well, the next person to speak is Mr. Kennard. If they shout down one person's proposal, then they can turn around and shout down Ben's. He raises the wrong issues at the wrong time. Here, he said he had a page of it. It might not be, he may have put it in there.
The Anacostia Neighborhood Museum is proposing the development of a multimedia communication center whose ultimate purpose is to communicate with our various publics in Anacostia on subjects that interest them using ways and means that are innovative, creative, and challenging to us all. In the first instance, the Bicentennial Assembly has agreed that the Assembly should pioneer in new methods of communications which have the following purposes: to provide information and facts to citizens as a basis for action and citizen influence, to involve citizens more in processes of government, and to afford greater public involvement in the early stages of planning and decision-making, and that a resolution should be developed for the Assembly approval, which is based on the premise that the most powerful position to be in is to have information. On August 5, 1972, we adopted a resolution which resolved that the Bicentennial Assembly consider that the provision of communication or community information and education is both a general policy position and a programmatic goal, and calls upon the government of the District of Columbia to ensure access to information and cooperation in facilitating communications with the citizens. In addition to this, our ad hoc committee on resource development proposed the development of a proposal for general support funding, which contains as a major component a comprehensive plan for community education and information, and that we develop a long-range profit-making plan to generate money which might include servicing the information needs of other organizations or agencies, and that we also watch for and push congressional bills which relate to funding for bicentennial projects. In our blueprint for action under programmatic goals number 2, it was stated that pioneering communications techniques and delivery systems must be developed to provide continuing community education, and that one of the major strategies developed is to begin immediately to develop resources needed to maintain information centers in each service area. This strategy is proposed to be expanded to include development of resources, including money and private sector support, to provide the equipment, supplies, and other needs in establishing a delivery system and information center network. These statements have been cited only to indicate the interest in communications that is broad, that are acceptable, and that provide us with not only the opportunity, but a mandate to develop our proposals, which will be the conscious synthesizing of our ideas posed against the canvas of all the difficulties, problems, confusion, and fears, aspirations, and hopes that are our constant companions. We are plagued with so many natural and imposed barriers that stifle our thinking, confuse our judgment, and force us to pigmify and think small of our efforts in the darkness of the forces that seek to keep us separated, fighting each other, losing sight of the enemy and the real causes of our dilemma. The proposal. We are proposing the development of the Anacostia Communications Center, that will seek ways and means of developing, creating, and making use of available telecommunications know-how. We would be concerned with the printed word on a piece of paper, posters, newspapers, and newsletters, magazines, books and booklets, postcards, and prints. We are concerned about the proposed the development of a radio station and the use of existing hearing devices that communicate ideas to our residents. We propose that this center will produce in its photographic section pictures and picture books, slides and film strips, and create multi-purpose use of the photographic and filmmaking technology. We propose that this center will develop a capacity in videotape, filmmaking, and delivery, and these delivery systems will be designed for our various publics. In addition to this, and not to be left unmentioned, is the development of our own cable television system. We are concerned about developing a multifaceted approach and capability to meet the variety of methods through which we are made to understand and heighten our awareness of each other, our community, and our world. The printed word in a book, heard as well as seen, is what we are called out to present. Sounds that further reinforce what we see so that the whole man might understand. Now, all of this would be indeed a folly if we had no message or ideas. Our mandate is in the first instance to communicate ideas that reflect what we were, what we are, as well as what it is possible for us to become. We must reflect on the Black experience, our difficulties and problems, aspirations, our history in the past, our history today, as well as tomorrow. What is Anacostia as a living, moving, existing entity? We are not interested in accumulating fancy equipment and learning technically how to use it without having a message that is more powerful and more important than the equipment. We intend to develop a training program that will involve the youth as well as the elderly in the uses of such equipment. Themes will be developed that will be of interest to all segments of our population, as well as areas of interest such as housing, education, the environment, health, recreation, the problems of drugs, crime, unemployment, sanitation, exploitation, and racism. We must do this from our own perspective and point of view, to tell the truth as we see it and feel reasonably sure that that's the way it is. Certainly, what is herein being proposed needs to be reinforced, refined, and developed to the extent that we can phase the development of this program over a period of years, or at our own speed. We do need to control what we think about ourselves, our past, our present, and our future. There are also several different methods through which this center could be developed. First of all, the Anacostia Museum could be the funded agent and carry out the development of this entire project. Secondly, an independent entity could be the funded agent with a community board that would be the corporate governance to develop policy, hire a director, and formalize the existence as a public corporation with nonprofit as well as profit-making status. Thirdly, the Bicentennial Assembly could be the funded agent developing the proposal in Anacostia for Anacostia and further seeking ways and means through which this project could have citywide prominence and implications and be duplicated in the 9 service areas and become a city project. This proposal could very well serve as a prototype or model, which could also be modified to suit various other neighborhoods. We realize that the history of Anacostia is somewhat peculiar with regard to the city as a whole in its development. At any rate, it is a part of Washington. The history of Anacostia in particular and the city as a whole could be brought alive through multimedia presentations at historical and interesting places. Orientation centers can be developed for multimedia presentations, utilizing existing structures somewhat modeled after the Orientation Center at the Anthropology Museum in Mexico City. This project would need researchers, scriptwriters, urbanologists, social and physical planners, geographers, historians, technicians, as well as interviewers, journalists, and commentators. The development of this project will be dependent upon the seriousness and necessity with which we envision its usefulness in helping this community improve the quality of life, enhance the well-being of its residents, and after all, if this community is to change, it will be dependent upon our own ability and courage to make those changes. The budget for this project is $1.5 million.
The next proposal will come from Haskell Lowry.
My name is Haskell Lowry, and I'm presenting this proposal on behalf of the Congress Heights Neighborhood Development Center number 3. Although this proposal is designed for Service Area 4, we feel that it could be a prototype or a prime program to be used in any other service area. It's a proposal for a comprehensive senior citizen service center. The problem: SAC 4 has a drastic need for programs to serve our senior citizens. We must begin to develop constructive programs to round out the lives of our citizens who have served society through the years and are now dependent on our aid. Cause: in this society, there's a premium placed on youth. In every facet of society, we find elements which are youth-oriented. This creates the dilemma of shunning our senior citizens. Our attitude is one of neglect or indifference. We no longer equate wisdom with advancing age. Program: through the mechanisms of already existing community action agencies like Neighborhood Development Center number 3, we feel that we can engage a program to find and recruit senior citizens. Presently, we will begin a recruitment program in November through the Hot Meal Program. Through this and other type programs, we can recruit and find senior citizens to engage in our program. The senior citizens will get together and form their own board to design the type of programs that they want to have. Presently, we plan to offer such programs as food stamps, social security and Medicaid referrals, a hot meal program, medicine buying co-op, and a transportation service. These are the primary services, and senior citizens will develop other type programs. The budget. Personnel. I won't go down the whole long list, but total personnel costs are $271,794. Total non-personnel costs $52,840. Total cost of the program $294,634.
Yeah, that goes down. Next person presenting a proposal is Frederick Douglass United Community Center, Mr. Bill Sanders.
Proposal that I'd like to present to this committee, being presented by the Frederick Douglass Community Center. I'd like to perhaps bring you up to date in terms of why this kind of effort is necessary. Perhaps the kind of thing that we witnessed at Lawton this week relates very closely to the kind of effort that we're about. If we as black people looked at those young men there, we saw that most of them were black men, young black men. And we know that in this country, something like 4 million youth get incarcerated, go to jail, busted, as we put it, for one reason or another each year. And we also know that most of those are black. As a matter of fact, a little better than 75% of them that go into the juvenile, go into a court system and are incarcerated yearly are black youngsters, and most of them come from urban centers, cities, areas just like Anacostia. We too know that all of these young people are treated with the traditional clinical and psychological approaches by professionals that we have some real problems with, which ultimately state that young people or our black youth have some emotional problems, or disadvantage, or all kinds of names that they give them. But essentially we know that young people do not have the kind of opportunities that will help them to grow into positive kinds of areas. So we're talking about not just diverting young people from a life of crime, but we're talking about the development of some kinds of institutions, some kinds of approaches to helping them deal with their problems that we know just by looking around our own community, throughout the city, throughout the country, young people's problems are not being met. And consequently, as they move to adulthood, that's just creating more and more problems for all of us to have to deal with. So we're talking about the development of a new institution. And we're talking about something substantially different from what the traditional social institutions that we are familiar with have developed. Our present national and political policies and institutions were designed primarily by white people to meet their needs, and therefore they're infested really with the forces of racism, bureaucratic red tape, professional misconceptions, as well as a generous portion of personal and cultural greed and infighting. And this kind of present institutional fabric of society that sets disadvantaged life conditions for black children, and the same precludes any kind of alleviation and remedy of these conditions. So in discussing approaches to youth development and any kind of delinquency prevention, quote, the authorities at HEW have already concluded in numerous studies that effective youth development programs must start with consideration of the institutional forces which impact on youth and shape their behavior, and prevent any reduction of delinquency, or the prevention of any reduction of delinquency rests on the identification, assessment, and alteration of those features in our institutional functioning that impede and obstruct a favorable course of youth development for all youth, particularly those social situations that make them more prone to the development of delinquent careers and participation in collective forms of withdrawal and deviancy in an effort to move away from some of their frustrations and find some answers to some of the problems that beset them. The Community Center proposes to establish a new kind of institution, which we would call a Youth Services Bureau, which would have a primary focus on providing a new range of multidimensional services to youth designed to enhance their personal growth and development and provide some socially acceptable, responsible, and personally gratifying roles in the community for young people. It would be a broad-based strategy for developing some model programs and techniques for youth development that could be translated to the agencies in the district and federal government, district government here primarily, that have the responsibility for providing these services. So one of the major objectives of the Bureau programs would be to divert young people from the juvenile justice system by offering positive social action activities and prevention programs, and by offering community-based rehabilitation programs as alternatives to placement of delinquent youth in the traditional correctional facilities. Just to give you an idea of some of the services that would be offered briefly, the program would include a youth employment service, a youth organizers bureau, a youth truancy service, a youth economic enterprises, a teen house, which would essentially be a place where any young person in the community could come and receive some help from young people and from people in the community, not from the traditional social service institutions that they've had to run to prior to now. They would develop a youth truancy program and a youth advocates program, which would, in essence, provide the direction as a youth board to generate programs for young people and to generate some direction for the community in terms of what young person's problems are. And to speak, this would not necessarily all be young people, but these would provide a combination of young people and adults who've had some real experience helping youngsters with problems. And we're not talking necessarily about professional people. We're talking about persons, paraprofessional persons, persons who have already had some experience in helping youth with problems, working with them, working with all the public and private agencies within the community that have some responsibility for youth services, helping them to make some assessment of the effectiveness of that program, helping to generate some recommendations and assistance in implementing whatever their recommendations would be. The program components would be developed along a plan which would allow for flexibility of some priority arrangements. However, the core component, which would provide some youth counseling and referral services, and we're talking about young people counseling young people, talking about a program which would provide a hotline for youth, not directed and generated by adults, but generated by young people themselves. So if a young person had a problem, they could take it to their peers or a member of their peer group for some assistance, some advice, some direction, and they would be functioning themselves. I think one of the important facets is that it would provide some training for about 200 young people to serve in the various components. These 200 young people's salaries we would be requesting from the Department of Labor, and we would hope that that expense would not be an expensive project. The economic enterprises that the young people would be developing young people here in the community, training them to gain some skills in operating economic enterprises of their own, some examples of which certainly might be the production and development of varying kinds of art objects that they may sell themselves, daycare services operated by young persons, and certain kinds of babysitting services as just suggestions in terms of whatever economic activities they would be interested in. There are certain agencies within the community and individuals. One certainly would be the Anacostia Economic Development Corporation, which would be able to provide that group with some expertise. And there are a number of public and private organizations that would be able to provide some direction there. One other program that they would like to operate and certainly get the staffing, get the resources from that from the Department of Human Resources would be a model group home program to establish in this community a model by which the city might follow in the development of a group home, where there would be 2 young adults and approximately 10 young people living as a family and making decisions about their own lives and kinds of services and needs that they might have, as opposed to some of the kinds of things that happen at Junior Village and that we know are happening at the institutions at law. For this effort, we expect that a tremendous number of resources would be furnished by public and private agencies. To give some example, in terms of space costs, those could certainly come from some public housing units already within the area that are not being utilized. We're talking about renovation of those. Department of Corrections has a group of persons already involved in providing that kind of service. We're talking about other agencies in the community that might have some space, and the staffing for this would include one director who would have some social planning expertise related particularly to social planning for young people, an administrative assistant, a program operations and personnel specialist, and 4 training specialists. These training specialists would work or train specifically in the areas of education, economic development, social work, and law. Then there would be 8 component leaders to lead the 8 components, and these would be young people in the community, ages say 19 to 25 years old. The total for the program, or the total budget for the program, is $157,436. Thank you.
people who are just coming in, would you please get the roll that's back there somewhere and sign it, please? It's important that, it's important that we have an accurate roll. Next person presenting a proposal is Mr. James Spate.
Madam Chairman, since last Friday evening, the Southeast Neighborhood House has decided not to submit a proposal. The basis for that decision resulted from the discussion that we had last Friday and also discussion that has taken place through the weekend. There's been much concern raised about using the available monies for the bicentennial effectively. And we've been much concerned about that and would not like to be contributing to a situation where we received monies and we were put in a box of simply spreading it among each program to keep people happy. And so we are not submitting as an appeal to the group to establish a process that will allow us to make good choices in terms of priorities and also to consider the programs that are already available in this area and make sure that programs are being adequately connected. Toward that end, the priorities which we would be concerned with, number one would be employment. We would be happy to join with organizations or groups of people who would be interested in developing a program that would be a public works kind of program that will offer employment for people in many of our programs, and our drug programs and some of our educational programs. We feel that we have trained a number of people and have not provided an opportunity for them to become employed after that training. We would recommend that approximately $500,000 to $560,000 be set aside for the development of such a program. It would have components in it dealing with the education, the training, counseling of some 60 to 75 persons. We would recommend that at least 40% of those jobs would go to ex-addicts, persons who are attempting to become unhooked and not have the necessary supports to make it. The jobs could apply to the improvement, the general improvement of this area between now and 1976. There's been many complaints about the collection of trash, inspections, code enforcement, and a myriad of problems. And people holding these jobs could work in conjunction with the Environmental Services Department and with a business development component relating to the Anacostia Economic Development Corporation and others. We could explore the possibility of setting up an independent sanitation company that could in turn contract with the district government and handle many of the problems in this area. The other priorities with which we are concerned, communications. And you've heard communication programs expressed here tonight, so I won't elaborate on that. Thirdly, planning. We feel that we need to allocate some monies to the planning process. We would be remiss if we do not allocate some of this money to a planning process so that next time around, next year, we'll be in a much better position to review our proposals and develop proposals and programs that will represent a building process for this community. Mr. Chairman, that completes my report.
Mrs. Sigrid Washington, DC Public Libraries.
proposal for placement of library kiosks in service area number 4. Part 1, summary cover sheet. Name and address of agency submitting proposal. Public Library, District of Columbia, 901 G Street Northwest. Subject, improvement of library services. Target group, users and non-users of the library in service area number 4. Total funds required, $20,000. Name of official authorized to submit proposal, Sigrid M. Washington. Job title, Branch Librarian, Washington Highlands Branch, the Public Library, District of Columbia. Other qualifications, library representative, SAC number 4, resident, service area number 4. Name and title of official who will have custody of requested funds, Milton S. Byam, Director, the Public Library, District of Columbia. Part 2, background information. The year 1972 will go down in the history of the city as the one that brought forth two important events within the District of Columbia Public Library: the opening of the new Martin Luther King Memorial Library and the appointment of Milton S. Byam to the directorship of our library system. One of Mr. Byam's first decisions after taking office was to place a moratorium on the District of Columbia Public Library's building program. This period will be used to conduct intensive studies on the effectiveness of existing library programs and on ways and means to improve library service to our community. We all are living in an era of change. While the library can look back to the past with a certain feeling of satisfaction with respect to library services thus far, we do know that we must experiment with different approaches, with innovative ideas, with new concepts, in order to make the District of Columbia Public Library a true service agency to all our citizens. Only by seeking new methods of service will we be able to keep up with the changes constantly imposed on us by the complexities of urban living. We feel that Mr. Byam's idea of placing library kiosks into various neighborhoods will be an excellent way of reaching out to those who have not come to us and of making the public library a true part of the streets of this community. The library's budget, such as the budgets of other city agencies, has been severely cut. We have to struggle not only to maintain, but also to improve existing services within these financial limitations. Therefore, the seeking of funds other than those being part of our budget is of utmost necessity. Part 3, Plan of Operation. The District of Columbia Public Library intends to place 2 library kiosks within service area number 4. Exact site locations will be determined at a later date based on the outcome of our studies and the suggestions of citizens. These kiosks will contain library materials designed to fill the immediate educational and cultural needs of the neighborhood in which they will be located. Telephone service to the central library and to the branches will ensure rapid access to materials not stocked in these kiosks. We will endeavor to make the kiosks as colorful and attractive as possible. This will be achieved by using bright colors and eye-catching pennants on the outside and colorful paperbacks and book covers as part of the library materials to be lent to the public. We would like to make it virtually impossible for the community not to see and not to use this service. Not only do we hope to make a permanent contribution to the beautification of service area number 4, but we feel that these kiosks will lend a festive note to the bicentennial celebrations in addition to providing an innovative and effective way of library service to the community. The cost of each kiosk will be $5,000 with an additional $5,000 each for staffing, thus bringing the total of requested funds to $20,000. We believe that this relatively modest sum will buy a lot in terms of the educational and cultural enrichment of the service area number 4 community. Thank you.
Mr. James Taggart, Far Southwest Civic Association.
I would like to propose a project for a mini park sub-area of Anacostia Museum. Description. A mini park with a park area and exhibits. Black arts design exhibits, Statues of black leaders along the parkway with biographies on each in poetic verse. Stage for plays, panels, meetings, revolving circular stage, museum hall. Aim, to further emphasize black culture in a mini sub-part of the Anacostia Museum. Second director to Anacostia Museum. The panel, assistant director, exhibit director, educational specialist, 3. Student researchers, 5. Neighborhood tour guides, 5. Secretary, typist, 2. Maintenance men, 2. The salaries to be added with technical assistance. Washington, D.C. is a predominantly black city. It is important to the black people to enrich their background and of many visitors, residents, and people in D.C., as is their culture, heritage, and many parts throughout the city. And enrich of the blacks will aid in better communication, understanding, and emphasis on one's real background and heritage. Area to be considered, leasing of the church at South Capitol and Chesapeake Street, Southwest. Proposal number 2. Daycare and Culture Center. Daycare building and facilities for the young, which in the evenings will become culture centers for adult and youth. Emphasis on old age adults. Project site, Old Safeway at South Capitol and Chesapeake Street, Southwest lease. Aim to create a center which can be used by the populous youth and old alike. Movable and portable furniture will make this possible. Center needs to be renovated to have daycare facilities and one large center for adult programs. Type of adult programs: sewing, ceramic, skills and art craft, wood carving, painting, sculpture, designing, dance lab, music lab, art lab, golf clubs, bag, charm lab, training, leadership lab. Personnel, director, assistant director, lab specialist, music, art, dancing, golf, charm, designing and sewing, sculpturing and ceramic, wood carving, painting, leadership, renovation. Cost and needs to be added by assistance. The American people has somehow forgotten that old age are to be taken care of and in needs of skills. This center will handle infant, youth, teens, and old age of all American people. Thank you.
Next person to present their proposal, Mr. Ben Davis. So, that's on.
Before starting my proposal, I'd like to say something. I'm surprised at the committee, and I take exception with a lot of things in this being a neighborhood community group that's supposed to be deciding things for the community. I think that when I talked to you earlier about some ground rules, you were saying you didn't know, John. I was under the impression that you were chairing the meeting since you had opened the meeting and talked most of the time, and it wasn't until the proposals were being called that Teresa came in. I really think that it's unfair for persons to be submitting 2 proposals at this meeting. I plan to not let it end with the ruling that I don't know who's the chairman. I take it Teresa's the chairman, made on my recommendation just a minute ago. I'm going to present the proposal as I presented it on Friday night, bearing in mind that we were limited to 5 minutes. The persons who submitted their proposal, the 3 proposals that were submitted, they were given 5 minutes by your chairing. Those were the rules you set down. I wrote you a note just a minute ago and asked that that same rule be applied to them. Southeast Neighborhood Action Board Incorporated, 1400 Good Hope Road Southeast, Washington, D.C., 220, September 29, 1972. Bicentennial Committee, SAC 4, Service Area 4. Dear Mr. Chairman, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for permitting me to submit a proposal in behalf of the Southeast Neighborhood Action Board Incorporated, parentheses CNAB. Because of the limited time in which we had to prepare the proposal for presentation, the first draft will consist of the introductory statement, purpose, specific objectives, and the budget sheet. We look forward to working more closely with the Bicentennial Committee in an effort to bring about the socioeconomic changes that are so desperately needed in order to correct some of the many afflictions that have been placed on our community. With best wishes, very truly yours, Benjamin F. Davis, President, Board of Directors. Introduction. The Southeast Neighborhood Action Board Incorporated is a nonprofit, community-based organization that serves as a vehicle for involving community residents in the policy-making decisions that affect their lives. This organization established the first community-controlled health clinic in the entire city of Washington, D.C., that provides medical services free to the residents of Anacostia and has won recognition for as far away as Montreal, Canada. In addition to the medical clinic, it operates a juvenile drug program, an adult drug maintenance program, and a comprehensive health planning program, all of which are funded by the District of Columbia and federal governments. We are keenly aware of the many problems that exist in the area of underemployment and unemployment, especially among those residents who have a drug history. We feel that in order to totally rehabilitate an individual, there is a need to provide all available resources to achieve this end. It has been our experience over the past 2 years since our involvement with the drug scene that of paramount importance is the need for training and employment. We propose to offer employment services to drug-dependent community residents who otherwise would be denied employment opportunities on the open market. Proposal for job development and employment. Area served, Anacostia east of River. Type of program, job development and employment. Age served, open. Number served, 300. Number of units, 2. Date submitted, 9/29/72. Contractor, Southeast Neighborhood Action Board Incorporated. Address, 1400 Good Hope Road Southeast. Telephone, 678-6800. Contact representative, Benjamin F. Davis, 1400 Good Hope Road Southeast, 678-6800. Site location to be selected. Purpose and description of program. Recognizing the underemployed and the unemployed scene in the urban community, we propose to provide a solid job bank that will coordinate with local businessmen and the business community at large. The program will be designed to stimulate and motivate the business community's interest in providing meaningful employment for residents with drug histories. It has become increasingly clear that one byproduct of addiction is the steadily mounting crime rate, which has the entire metropolitan area in its grip. In order to support a habit requiring $40 worth of heroin a day, it is necessary to steal at least 5 times that value in goods to obtain the essential $40. It becomes a matter of life and death to an addict, and his desperation makes life dangerous for everyone. His mother, whose purse is hidden away, the store owner whose till is invitingly full, the passerby who merely happened to be there. Thus, the prevention and elimination of addiction is a vital first step in improving the quality of life for all the citizens of Anacostia. Through our experience, we have learned that for those residents with drug histories who are seeking therapeutic help, employment opportunities is the only alternative to prevent them from returning to a lifestyle of crime. Specific objectives of the program. The program will concentrate on the involvement of participants who are now receiving services from the Adult Drug Maintenance Program, Juvenile Drug Program, Project SAVE, Urban League Drug Education, and the Anacostia Drug Education and Employment Programs. The major objectives will be to provide job opportunities to those persons who are receiving therapeutic treatment and have shown positive signs of improvement and are now ready for employment. 2, to enable former addicts to live creative and fulfilling lives as wage earners who are integrated into family units. At present, permanent rehabilitation is made much more difficult by the fact that most addicts live apart from their family units. 3, to provide training for staff and volunteers who are former addicts, to enable them to acquire new skills that will ensure vocational advancement. 4, provide them with the necessary information to permit them to obtain employment where it is required. This includes referral and transportation services. 5, provide them with the courage and incentive to seek employment. 6, maintain contact with agencies which can supply needed services to addicts. 7, serving as educational resource persons in the community in order to establish a meaningful employment program, particularly for the area youth. 8, to involve other former addicts in the program so that they too may serve their community. Budget summary. Director 1, 100% time at $18,000 per year. Assistant Director 1, 100% time, $16,000 per year. Employment Job Development Specialist 1, 100% time, $14,000 per year. Social Worker 1, 100% time, $13,500 per year. Therapist 1, 100% time, $12,000 per year. Program Analyst 1, 100% time, $11,500 per year. Employment Counselors 10, $9,000 each, $90,000 per year. Secretary 1, 100% time, $8,500 per year. Clerk Receptionist 2, 100% time, $6,500 each per year, $13,000 per year. Bookkeeper, Timekeeper 1, 100% time, $10,000 per year. Total personnel costs, $220,000. Fringe benefits at 20%, $44,000. Total personnel and fringe benefits, $264,000. Line items. Rent, $14,400. 2 sites, $7,200 per year, $600 each per month. Utilities, gas, electric, heat, etc., $4,800 per year. Telephones, $3,600 per year, 2 sites, $1,800 each site. Total, $22,800. Consultants, $15,000 per year. Janitorial services, $3,600 a year. Total, $18,600. Equipment, rental and purchase, $10,000. Consumable supplies, $5,200. Administrative travel, $2,000. Total, $15,200. Trash removal, $1,200, 2 sites. Miscellaneous, building renovations, etc., $12,000. Tokens for clients, $1,000. Total budget, $336,800. Thank you.
Anacostia Economic Development Corporation, Mr. Charlie Vaughn.
Good evening. I had a chance to read this proposal Friday night, but I again appreciate the opportunity to read our proposal again. Anacostia Planning and Development Project, being sponsored by Anacostia Economic Development Corporation. The Anacostia Planning and Development Project is a program designed to slow and ultimately halt the downward spiral of economic and social decay and to encourage the balanced development of a predominantly low to moderate income community of Washington, D.C. Anacostia Congress Heights suffers from a serious lack of planning, probably even worse than any other section of the city. Large areas are without shopping facilities. Very little employment opportunity exists in the entire area. Housing has been built without little pattern, streets are laid out aimlessly, and are unable to handle even moderate amounts of traffic. Schools are overcrowded, and there's demand for additional recreational space and facilities. The planning now being conducted by various federal and city agencies does not appear to overcome these problems. The planned metro route is considered by Anacostia Congress Heights residents to be designed to service Prince George's County needs, not those of Anacostia Congress Heights. No immediate plans exist for reconstruction of commercial areas within Anacostia, such as the Wheeler Road area. Anacostia Congress Heights continues to play second fiddle to Cardozo and other segments of the city. The community urgently needs its own planning staff to conduct in-depth planning in its behalf and to coordinate with other city agencies such as National Capital Planning Commission, Redevelopment Land Agency, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, to encourage and to monitor optimum planning for its constituents. This proposal will be implemented by a coalition of community agencies and leaders under the sponsorship of Anacostia Economic Development Corporation, a community-based nonprofit economic development corporation. Through such a structure, the proposal has the full support and input of the community at large and will generate plans and projects specifically representative of their needs and objectives. Purpose. The purpose of this proposal is as following: to prepare a development study for Anacostia which would analyze present conditions, identify problems, develop alternatives, and determine priorities for development. Lock together the larger business community, federal, local agencies, and community residents in a concerted attempt to intervene in the cycle of poverty of a community. Give residents of Anacostia meaningful control over the development of the area and some significant ownership in the development of the area. Methodology. A planning team made up of an economist, architect, urban planner, civil engineer, draftsman, and a research assistant will have the task of analyzing all data and existing studies on Anacostia to identify various problems and opportunities which exist. A step-by-step action program based on specific project proposals will be prepared. These will include estimates of cost, sources of financing, and may I add, in some cases for certain projects we may not need financing, but we may need to attract certain major governmental programs out here to develop certain projects. Timing, and will outline the action required by the community and by various governmental agencies. The planning team will contract with Doxiadis Associates for backup assistance, and I will speak briefly on this after I finish. Implementation. The development plan will consist of short-range projects to be implemented before 1976 and long-range projects. Some of the proposed objectives are economic development, jobs, education, housing, transportation, open space, community facilities, and urban design. Proposed projects: development of Bolin Anacostia Base Track, development of Frederick Douglass Cultural Center, development of selected shopping centers to include metro stations. These are some of the proposed projects.